It's been quite a year in Britain and around the world for losing great entertainers and other people well known to the public. And it was with a deep sadness last night that I heard that we now have to add Prince to that list. I'm not really into music. I haven't been since the 1960s when I was into it big time. But of course, I knew of Prince, not least because of his efforts to end what he saw as his slavery to the corporate record giants. And I remember looking on while that was happening, thinking, good on you, mate, go for it. But I didn't know a lot about Prince then until out of nowhere I got an invitation to go and meet him and attend one of his concerts at the O2 Arena in London. He did 21 shows in 2007, and they were extraordinary. And it turned out that he'd read some of my books and wanted to talk to me, which was kind of obviously very surprising to me, but great, all for it. And I went along with my son Gareth, the singer-songwriter. And like I say, I've not really been into music since the 60s, certainly not been to music events. But that night, it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. You have even great bands who will do a song and then the song will end and they'll get the applause and then they'll sing another song. But that night at the O2, and people who know far more about Prince's music than me will have experienced this many times, there was no point when the music stopped. It was music from the moment it started and right to the end. And it was different kinds of music, and he was stepping into it and taking on a different type of music. Then suddenly that would shift and he'd be into another different type of music, and the transitions were not just seamless, they were almost non-existent. It was just an extraordinary thing to witness. And while I know next to nothing about music, certainly can't play it, can play a triangle in tune, what I can do is see energy beyond what we call the physical. And as I was watching that amazing event that night, it was clear that Prince was not just making music, he was the music, and the music was him. He was tuned in to something beyond this reality, which it clearly happened at a very early age when music took him over. And that's probably quite a relevant phrase, took him over. And we're hearing now of this fantastic number of recordings that the public's never heard of, that he put together over the years. because he was always making music and always recording music. And when you are someone like him who actually tuned into something that had, if you like, taken him over in terms of his life, then I'm not surprised that he couldn't stop making music when that vibe was constantly around him and flowing through him. It's the same kind of energetic inspiration that the great composers were tuning into. And I don't want to make it sound like Prince was some kind of god. There are no gods. There's just infinite awareness having infinite experiences to infinitely experience itself. We're all just expressions of that infinite awareness. But some people tune into some of it, and some people tune into more of it. And when you tune into that greater level, then you become often perceived as anything from a genius. And in terms of music, Prince was a freaking genius, almost beyond compare. And they'll see you as weird and strange, not normal. And of course, all of those things applied to Prince. He was acknowledged by so many people as a musical genius because he was tuning into something that most people don't. And he was expressing that in his performances, in his writing, in his music in general, because once you're on that vibe and that vibe's flowing through you, then you are the music. You're not just this music or that music. You're not just this instrument or that instrument. You are the music. And that can be expressed through any kind of what we call music and any kind of what we call musical instruments, means of making music. And so it's no surprise to me then that he is famous for playing right across the musical spectrum of taste, of interest, of potential, and could play an extraordinary number of musical instruments. I'd be very surprised if he took very long to learn how to use each one either, because the music within him, coming through him, would naturally give an aptitude to express itself. So he was considered a genius, but he was also considered weird. One article I read today described his whimsical logic. And that makes sense too. Because when you are tuned to something beyond the norm, beyond the normal of this reality, it's usually like that, then not only do you access genius, but you also are coming at life and looking at life from a completely different angle. And normal will see you as strange, as people saw Prince as strange. But what is normal? Normal is only what people normally experience. That's all it is. And when you tune into these other levels of reality as he did clearly, then you're not going to express yourself in the so-called normal way, because from this perspective, you're not tuning in to what most other people are tuning into. And if you express that, then normal's going to see you as strange. He said, I was reading in an article today, I am something that you just can't understand. And again, that makes perfect sense. Because when you are connected to something that's different to the norm, and it's not, like someone's special or godlike. Anyone can do it. It's just that most people don't. But when you are tuned to something different, then how can people who are not tuned to that understand where you're coming from? In fact, another quote I read of Prince was that you have to live life to understand it, and that others are tourists just passing through. And I can completely understand that and completely relate to that, because when you are connected to something that's outside the norm, then it's very difficult for people who are not connected to that to understand where you're coming from. And most people in the world, because of the way the world is manipulated to close people down from these greater expansions of awareness, because of that, most people are basically tourists passing through. They're onlookers of life. They are like watching the movie instead of impacting on the movie like Prince did. He was described also in another article as completely unknowable, but that's the same theme. He was tuned to something that is unknowable, certainly within this reality anyway, and thus in expressing that, he appeared to be unknowable to others in the sense of, I can't work this guy out. Well, normal doesn't understand different. That's why it's normal. And I came across this quote from him talking about working in private. He said, it's a way of cutting off the chaos. It's the way of cutting the chaos off, cutting off the outside forces, things that focus the conscious mind to the point where you can't hear the music in the same way. He said, I heard Prince is crazy so much that it had an effect on me. So one day I said, let me just check out. Here is the solitude, silence. I like to stay in this controlled environment. People say I'm out of touch, but I'll do 25 or 30 more albums. I'm going to catch up with Sinatra. So you tell me who's out of touch. One thing I ain't gonna run out of is music. And that is why he never did. Because he was the music. He was connected to that realm of inspiration that manifests in this reality as music. He also said that's what you want, transcendence. When that happens, oh boy. And that is what he did. He transcended the normal and thus became the musical genius that he was. But when you transcend the normal in one way, like Prince did with music, you don't switch it on or switch it off, and therefore in the rest of his life he was not normal. In one of the biggest insults that you could give to anyone, in my view, is to call them normal. I mean, to call really it's better than that, I hope. And he was described as weird and strange and all these things because he was expressing something that wasn't normal. And something else that happens when you access a reality and a sense of reality that is beyond this realm. You won't let anyone dictate your life. You will not be a slave to someone else. And so when he took on the music industry, because he used that phrase, I won't be a slave, that is absolutely in line with what he was connected to. And it was another aspect of a sense of reality that played out in another way as his fantastic and never-ending musical inspiration. We talked for about half an hour after the event at the O2. And I found him quiet man, very, very respectful to me and Gareth, which, to be honest, at that time especially, was not something I was used to. And it was clear, talking to him, that he had realized and seen that the world is not controlled by the forces that people are told are in control, like politicians and the usual cover story that we're given about how the world is run and to what end. He talked to me about his support and his faith through the Jehovah's Witnesses, which I was kind of surprised at. It didn't really fit into the picture just from where I'm coming from, but everyone to their own. But what he was a public expression of all the inspiration and potential that's lying in wait for anyone who wants to or chooses to open their minds from the normal program and connect with it. Because when you do that, it's not just connecting with it, it's then expressing it. Expressing not normal in a world of normal, and taking all the consequences that come with that. And what gives me such enormous respect for the man is that he did that. And that's what made him an extraordinarily unique and different human being. Actually, consciousness, which is where he was coming from. So you kind of ask at these times when people leave us, I wonder where they've gone. I wonder where they are now. Well, to me, Prince, not the body, the consciousness, the awareness, the eternal uniqueness, is where he was when he was, quote, here. Because we confuse the body with consciousness. And that level of consciousness that he was tapping into, that brought this fantastic music into manifestation, that's where he was then. And that's where he, the consciousness, will be now, because the body's no more, and the body was only a vehicle to experience this reality anyway. And Prince for me is summed up by a great line. Those who danced were thought to be quite insane by those who could not hear the music. And I see this all the time in this world of normal, where someone's tuned into something else. They can hear the music and they start to dance to it, just like Prince did with his music and with his life. And people look on and they say, you're mad, you're crazy, you're weird, because they can't hear the music that you can hear. Prince, my goodness me, Prince could hear the music, and the world was better for it.